All right, what's good, y'all? It's the Crimson Prince here, checking in. So check it out. As promised, making a reaction video to the final presidential debate between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. As predicted, let me get this right out of the way. As I predicted, Trump had a different game plan. He stuck to the game plan quite well, and he got the job done tonight. He got the job done tonight, and I mean that completely truthfully. I don't see how you could argue the other way around. So let's go through the topics and touch on them individually, highlighting the key points of what happened. And look at my little cheat sheet here. All right, first topic, COVID-19. I didn't think this was, and I'm going to really judge this based on the independent voters, undecided voters. Partisan Democrats, partisan Republicans, they stay on their aisles. This is about switching independents to one side or the other. So here we go. COVID-19, pretty much exhausted already through the past, for the last town hall and the first debate. Nothing really changed with the metrics regarding this. Again, I think Biden seemed very repetitive. I think a lot of what he was saying mirrored what he said in the first debate. So it sounded very scripted, and I think that's why he's been in his basement recently. And I think that's pretty much if there is a negative that had to come out of Biden on this topic, it would be the very scripted nature of it, him saying there was no plan. The good thing that Trump did in this case was he talked about the Pelosi going to the streets of Chinatown. Again, he said things that he said in response that he said before. In March, Biden called the fact that after he closed the border or closed travel from China to the United States, Biden said he was xenophobic. Biden didn't really offer anything of substance back then. I would have liked him to make a rebuttal to Biden's claim about the right decision was to jump the gun and shut the country down ahead of time, which I think would have been a disastrous decision. But again, he didn't. But Biden didn't emphasize that as much. He sort of snuck in a line about the Woodward tapes there, so he didn't really need to warrant a thought-out response. So that's totally fine. If I had to pick a clear winner, I think COVID as an issue in general is not good for Trump in any way. But as far as the debate goes, I think it didn't really change much of the metrics, and that's just my initial reaction. And of course, I think people who want things to be reopened, and then you have the sort of soccer mom concerned, crowd of those who'd be affected by COVID or those who are still scared about the disease. But I'm glad Trump also brought up the 99% survival statistics and other things like that. So I'm not going to get into COVID too much. Not really much there. As far as American families, strange name for a topic anyway, but so I think they went both into economy and healthcare a little bit here and there. As far as healthcare, again, a lot of this was like what has been stated before in past debates, and things that were made abundantly clear. I think Trump should have capitalized on the socialism a bit more, play that card a bit more handily. However, I do. And I think he should have really emphasized the rift within the Democratic Party, the fringe far left voters, not really a fringe because they're really taking over a lot of the party nowadays. The far left voters were going to push for healthcare that's on further left on the political spectrum, reducing quality of healthcare in a country as large as the United States to pretty much uproot the system that we have now and transferring into completely government-run healthcare. I think Trump should have played that card a little bit better. But again, I think Biden did what he had to do with emphasizing the private plans, and I think he dodged a bullet there. So I think, again, the metrics on healthcare didn't change too much. The economy, I'll touch on this later. I'll touch on the economy later. I'm going to save that till the end, and you'll see why. So let's see what else they talk about. While this was going on, pretty soon, in the first third of the debate, Trump introduced the Hunter Biden scandal. So I think it could only have helped Trump, pretty much. I don't see how it could have helped Biden's rebuttal. Because, again, the sentiment that helped Trump win over independents in 2016 was the fact that he was an outsider. He was not one of these politicians, run-of-the-mill politicians that are all talk, no action. and raise red flags about corruption. He did the same thing with Hillary, and he's going to bring that same. He wants to paint the same picture with Biden, and I think it's very similar to the Hillary scandal. I think we're already seeing some evidence of polls shifting. If you watch a lot of poll, not the fake news, liberal media, or even Fox News, just independent creators going into the polls. A lot of them are suggesting that the scandal with Ukraine and China is at least to a small extent affecting Joe Biden, and is negatively affecting his performance for voters who have not voted yet. And I think that just by bringing it up is going to bring it to the attention of a lot of people who weren't able to see it due to the censorship and due to the media and simply not covering it at all. And I think, Joe actually brought up, you remember he was like, should I bring it up? Oh, okay, I'll bring it up. His henchman, Rudy Giuliani, whatever. I think Joe made a huge mistake. I think that was a bad mistake on Joe Biden's part, because Trump said, okay, here's my cue. Let's dig into it right here. So Trump came out swinging with that. I'm glad he didn't bring up Hunter as much. I think he pointed the fingers at Joe. Look, you lined your pockets with China. And again, Joe Biden, this is the thing with the Democrats. They don't really have a leg to stand on because they're running on fake news headlines. They're running on mainstream media narratives, not really running on anything of substance. He didn't debunk the claims, and he was flat out wrong about, the intelligence agencies not saying this was part of a Russian hoax or Russian scheme. He just had to say something, and he just couldn't gather his thoughts properly. And Trump capitalized, and he said, "Look, this was not a Russian hoax." I don't know if he said what John Radcliffe said. He might have, but I think he dug into Joe Biden. I think Trump had a good answer about the bank account with China, the fact that he closed it. It was very clear there. I think there were more red flags at the very least raised against Joe Biden when Trump brought that up than the red flags raised against Trump. So in any case, that would have been a win for Trump in any case. So moving on, let's talk about race. Here, again, obviously, Democrats are going to have the race advantage in the polls, right? We know that. We also know that Hispanic voters and more black voters are going to go towards Trump in this election cycle. Now, I think a lot of that has to do with the things Joe Biden has said and the fact that Joe Biden is a politician that has whispered sweet nothings to these minority communities for the sake of retaining power and getting votes. And again, for 47 years, he's done nothing. And I'm glad Trump brought that up again. The 47 years, all talk, no action. He differentiated Joe Biden's the crime bill that Joe Biden had to the criminal justice reform initiatives that he took on in this administration. I think with Joe Biden, he said some things about not having, about reducing the amount of incarcerated individuals who didn't commit violent crimes, nonviolent crimes, emphasizing rehabilitation centers. It just seemed very scripted. You're not running on a record. I think he should have dug into Trump on this record right there. With the Central Park Five, we've all heard that story. He should have said something a little bit more substantive and been a little more aggressive. And I think he actually lost the race topic. I really do think he lost the race topic. I think things he said, you ain't black. I know Trump didn't mention that, but he mentioned super predators. He mentioned, again, the fact that Joe Biden didn't do anything, essentially, to really address this issue. I think he should have talked about Kamala Harris more, actually, with the way she's been locking people up in her prosecutorial record. But I think overall, this was a topic Biden should have won, and he didn't really grab it by the horns and win it. So I actually think this was a win for Trump. So let's keep going. And I'm going to touch on foreign policy. I know foreign policy was not a major topic, was not a topic period, a planned topic period in this debate. But I do agree with the notion that, again, this silly notion that Trump cozies up to dictators and he's nice to these authoritarian figures, and the point is that's called diplomacy. That is called being a good diplomat and getting things done. Um, you know, Clearly Biden seems like he's living in the 90s when he suggested that, North Korea should be completely denuclearized. I mean, it's just unrealistic at this point. Um, and yes, Trump is making good progress with North Korea and North Korean relations. Obviously, there's always going to be a bumpy road with them, but you live and you learn and you keep moving forward. Um, but I think this, again, if it was foreign policy, again, there's no way Joe Biden can win this topic. There's no way Joe Biden can win this topic, but just based on record alone, there's absolutely no way, unless Trump screwed up big time, which he didn't, that Joe Biden could have won this topic. And I think Trump, again, running on the recency bias, the incumbent advantage, um, and also really just the fact this I think this is the problem with the Democratic strategy, right? Painting Trump as this erratic dictator like figure, who doesn't know how to manage a country, or doesn't know who's very impulsive and very irresponsible with the way he manages decisions. What Trump is saying and what it's been shown to do, he's been pulling us out of foreign conflicts. He's been pulling us out of these terrible investments that we've had militarily overseas in the Middle East. And he's actively working to mend relationships with Korea. Um, and by the way, I think the whole Russia aspect, I thought Russia would play into Biden's favor in this debate. The whole concept of Russia in general, election interference, Trump and Putin's relationship. But I think Trump made us emphatically just, he was emphatic enough to suggest, he sanctioned Russia. He mentioned with the whole with Joe Biden's excuse with regards to I believe the Hunter Biden laptop. He said, "Oh, this is here you go again, Russia, 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 Russia," which is what a lot of Americans are tired of hearing, point blank, period. And I'm glad he just waved it off in that regard. So that didn't really work out too well for Biden. Um, Immigration. Oh, we're still on foreign policy, right? Okay, foreign policy. I think Trump won. I just want to touch on the North Korea part of it. I think it's kind of delusional the way Joe Biden, was bringing up his points there. But again, moving forward, um, climate change. Biden buried himself here. I think going into the first two thirds, I thought it was actually kind of Biden was competitive and it was kind of close. Optically, with Trump not having to interrupt him, um, optically he held his own. I actually do think that. But when it came to climate change, fracking, energy shifting away from oil, ooh man, this is when I thought, yeah, I thought it was a slight Trump edge, and here I thought, bam, Biden's ship is sinking, man. This is it. Um, the way Trump set him up for, he got him to admit that, we're moving away from oil. He called him out on his fracking hypocrisy, and right away, go look at Trump's YouTube channel, called him out right away, as promised, called out Biden on his lies, flip-flopping on fracking. The amount of times he's denounced fracking and wants to put an end to it perfectly goes to show the image that Trump is that Trump has painted. A politician that's been in this game, been in the system for the past 47 years. American people are tired of it. They don't want all talk. They do want action. And what you've said, what you've been exhibiting is just talk and talk and talk. And how can you be trusted? And I think he's implemented that message pretty well. And Biden's message, that Trump is irresponsible, that we can't trust someone like him to continue with this country, hate, division, whatever. It's getting kind of recycled and kind of old. It's been done the first debate, what I thought, Trump didn't really succeed in the first debate when I made my reaction video to that. But in this debate, I do think that Biden scripted responses were getting old. I think Trump came with a more level head. I think he came to pick his spots a lot better. That's why I didn't think the muted microphones were going to play a huge disadvantage to Trump, if at all. So there you go. But I think Trump really buried Biden with the climate change, talking about the Green New Deal. And from there, he mentioned taxes, about Joe Biden raising taxes. And again, this is the thing. the good thing is Trump, had this been a long, drawn out topic in general about the economy, Biden could have held his own, like he did in the first debate, actually. But again, just a little time that was spent on it, Trump was in control. Trump talked about Biden raising taxes, and Biden was not able to respond. And another tactic that Trump used very effectively, I was very impressed by this, he was getting the last word. After Biden responded to Trump, Trump's opening statement, whatever. They would go back and forth. Maybe each had two more tries at it. Biden would say something, and Trump just strong arms the moderator, who was again very biased. But it's not worth going into too much. We all saw it with our own eyes. We know it's going to be biased. So it's not worth going into. But I think Trump handled her well, just like he did Savannah of NBC. Yeah, Trump's strong arms the moderator, says his piece at the end, and Biden just kind of squeaks in response to that. But I think Trump did a good job of getting the last word in. So for you debaters out there, take that for what you will. I think that's a great strategy, because the moderator is so keen to move on, but Trump just brings up something right at the end, and gets the last gasp right there, the last gasp of air, at the end of these exchanges. So I was very impressed by that, actually. I don't know if that was a conscious game plan. I don't believe it was. I think that's just Trump using his personality and using his energy to his advantage. And yeah, I think Joe Biden seemed kind of slow. He didn't seem too bad. I mean, look, these guys are presidents, so we're gonna push harsh standards on them to be coherent and stuff. But I think Trump held his own. He was calm, level-headed. He called out Joe on some of the gaffes that he made, very effective. Dang, he was on point. I do think that there were times where he could have really stomped his foot down on Joe's record, and the things that Joe suggested that he would have done, and really targeted the fake news media, targeted censorship, really stoked the idea of division. The division that's being caused in this country is the media. I wish he would have made a statement alluding to that, especially towards the end where the moderator couldn't say really anything in response. I think that sentiment is a sentiment that he needed to have gotten out there, because there are a lot of people out there who think that he is the source of division in this country, which is simply not true. He might say things you disagree with, but he's definitely not out there looking to fuel up hate and looking to fuel up division. That is not what I'm seeing at all. Not what most Americans, I mean, many Americans aren't seeing that. People are tired of it, and I think he should have stomped his foot down and made a message to really point that out. But I do think that overall he did a very good job. I'd give him a B plus. So yeah, solid performance, a good performance, good above average, I would say. For Joe Biden, I think he was holding his own. I'd give him a C plus, B, even a B minus for maybe the first half, right? Then he sunk himself. C minus. I think the only reason I'm giving him a C minus, again, he got help from the moderator. And of course, I'm not judging it on the debate itself. I'm judging on the perception, right? Of course, the media is going to help him in that regard. So I give him a C minus or a C. But I think Trump clearly won this debate, man. There's no question in my mind. But yeah, let me think of something else I can touch on. Oh, I kind of said a lot right there. Okay, just one thing I wanted to point out. In the closing messages, you could see the short-sightedness with Biden's memory there. He mentioned something, a big part of his closing message was about doing with clean energy, this and that. Because he's short-sighted, in your inaugural address, you're not going to be, why are you talking about clean energy so much? Talk about your overall message that you're sending to the American people. Trump had an excellent final message. He had a very good final message. One that, talk about America as a whole, bring Americans together through success. Just a good sentiment. And Biden just, again, struck to bullet points. It didn't seem as authentic. It didn't seem as flowing and, it didn't seem vibrant. I mean, I'm just kind of, it might sound like I'm talking bullshit, it could be at this point. But I stated my case. I stated my thoughts on these topics. We'll see in the polling what happens. We'll see in the voting what happens. Right now it's looking not too good for Biden in the polling and in the voting. I think their Democrats are underperforming, for good reason. Because if this is the best that they came up with, man, it goes to show you the sad state of the Democratic Party. And if we let the media win this election, because that's who's winning. If Biden wins, I think that's the biggest winners of the election, is the media. I think it would be a sad, sad situation for our country. But yeah, man. Uh, Let me think of some positives for Biden before I sign off. Let me just think. He didn't tank himself with, again, he didn't tank himself initially. He didn't tank himself for the first half. COVID was always going to be a point that he could capitalize on because of, the way the media structured the narrative, and I think he used that to his advantage. I think, immigration, I think the migrant children separation issue, I don't even think that's an issue. Just like Trump's tax returns, I don't think these are issues that are going to win over independent voters at all. I really don't think these are issues that are going to win over the independent voters. They're nice to put on CBS or MSNBC, make their voters, maybe energize the Democrats, but we've already known this. This is, I mean, they've already had these sentiments beforehand. This debate didn't really change anything about that. But yeah, I think the main thing is just the sentiment that Trump evoked of all talk, no action. You've been here for 40 years. I wish you'd have dug into the DNC itself as an institution and the way Joe Biden was essentially gifted the nomination. But it's all cool, the debate's over. What more can you do? I think the media will do what they can to prop up Biden after this performance. And yeah, man, that's all I got to say about it. That's my initial reaction. Hope y'all found it entertaining, and hope y'all understood my thought process. Again, I am an independent who is voting Trump. So if you couldn't already tell, I'm cat's out of the bag. But I just want to give my thoughts on the performances of each candidate, and that's about it. So I hope you found this entertaining. I hope you found this engaging and useful. I'm going to be uploading more content as the election comes around the corner. It is right around the corner. Everybody go vote. If you ask me, the Trump train never stops. So there you go, guys. Crimson Prince signing out. Thanks for watching.